All right, everyone. Welcome in. My name is Caleb Mills. Let me ask you a question and be honest with yourself. Are you tired of chasing your own tail? You know what I'm talking about. You try this quick discharge method you saw online. You try that letter template. You get a little movement, and then 2 weeks later, you're right back in the same mess. Watching your social security number get ran through the system like a credit card, and most of the time, we get no response at all. And just sitting there, even more frustrated from their strategical silence. It's exhausting, and honestly, it's a slow game that you didn't sign up to play. Everyone's story is different, and the banks have their own rule books that we can't see. So we end up spinning our wheels instead of building our legacy. I believe in this truth movement, and I believe in the process that I'm going to be presenting to you today. My name is Caleb Mills, and this is Trusted Academy. Here's the truth. I had to learn the hard way. The same truth I'm going to share with you today. The remedy isn't fighting the system with your old identity. The remedy is becoming private. The remedy is becoming your own banker. At Trusted Academy, we aren't here just to fix your credit score. We're here to correct your status so you can operate in a completely different league. The roadmap simplified for students. There are 3 pillars to what we're going to build here together. Become private. We'll talk through actual documentation, declarations, notices, and more importantly, how to draft them so they actually hold weight. There's a secured priority process, and this would be one of the first steps that you would take to step out of the public side into the private. And then we'll go into operate private. Once you're private, how do you move? We'll cover recording through business trust, private membership associations, and even real estate recordings. This is the infrastructure. And then we will step into getting funding. We'll cover private merchant processing and why your current payment setup is leaving you vulnerable. Now, I want some of you who are listening and thinking, Caleb, that sounds great for the future, but I need a remedy now. I need capital to even get started. I hear you, and I want you to hear this clearly. There is no reason for anyone to be broke. New entities can be created every single day. Every day is a new opportunity to walk into a bank. Not with your personal credit profile begging for a loan, but with an entity that qualifies for a CRA loan. That's a mandatory federal grant program banks have to provide. We're talking about at least $50,000 to kickstart your business, and it does not carry a personal guarantee on your back. If you're stuck right now, we'll cover exactly how to repair your credit, just enough to bridge you into that CRA loan. That's a smart play, not endless disputes. Get the loan, become private, and move on. I want to be upfront with you about the format right now. We are building a comprehensive online platform that will be your home for this education. While we're putting the finishing touches on that, I'm going to open up my personal course library. Think of these early sessions as us sitting at the kitchen table while I read from the best books in the world on this subject. I'm going to share my story, how I learned this, and how I'm actively applying it in real life right now. You'll see exactly how deep the material goes. Today, specifically, I'm giving a brief overview of Become Private, Operate Private, and we're going to start diving into the introduction of the Unincorporated Business Trust. If you're ready to stop being a credit repair student and start being a private banker, let's get into it. Grab a notebook. This changes things. So, we will start, like I mentioned, at Become Private. Let's see here. Just one moment. So I'll just give a brief overview about the secured party creditor. It's the common law trust. This comprehensive course on private trust provides learners with a structured pathway to mastering private asset management under common law, beginning with the introduction to private trust. Participants explore how trusts function as powerful vehicles for wealth preservation and control. Through lessons on key trust terminology, trust creation process, and trust documentation and structure, they gain the legal and procedural foundation to establish and manage a lawful private trust. Modules on trustee and beneficiary roles, powers and governance, and trust operations and banking ensure learners understand governance, fiduciary roles and duties, and financial administration. The course also covers critical compliance aspects such as notifications and public recording filing, security agreement and collateralization, and legal protections and risk management, equipping participants to secure and defend trust assets effectively. Finally, through sample trust implementation and closing and continuation, learners bridge theory with practice, building the competence to create, operate, and sustain a private trust that endures across generations. So that's the secured party. I'll give a brief overview of the status correction recordings. This comprehensive program guides individuals through the process of status correction, transitioning from a public, state-controlled legal identity to a private, sovereign standing. Through structured models, participants learn to execute key legal instruments such as declaration of political status, deed of reconveyance, certificate of assumed name, and other sovereignty documents. The course integrates historical, legal, and practical insights to help individuals establish lawful independence, protect assets, and operate confidently within private law frameworks. Talk a little bit about operate private. First, we'll talk about business trust. The Business Trust course is a comprehensive learning program designed to provide a complete understanding of establishing, managing, and protecting a private business trust. It begins by introducing the essential trust documents and their functions, helping learners organize and utilize their trust portfolios effectively. The course then explores the operational aspects, including bookkeeping, expense management, trustee responsibilities, and liability protection, ensuring lawful and efficient trust administration. As the lesson progresses, learners are introduced to deeper legal and jurisdictional concepts such as statutory versus common law, business regulation, and the implications of doing business. The program also covers key legal definitions, registration considerations, and the relationship between business activity and taxation. Finally, it dives into advanced topics like administrative presumptions, jurisdictional avoidance, non-resident status, and legal instruments for protecting trust status. By the end of the course, learners gain the knowledge and confidence to operate a business trust as a private, secure, and compliant legal entity. And here's a brief overview of the Private Membership Association recordings. This module provides a clear overview of private membership association recordings, explaining their purpose, proper documentation, and secure record keeping practices to support private operations, internal governance, and compliance within the PMA framework. And finally, the real estate recordings. This module explains real estate recordings, covering the purpose of recording property documents, types of recordable instruments, and best practices for accurate filing to establish public notice, protect ownership interest, and maintain a clear chain of title. Right, and now we are going to start diving into the introduction of the unincorporated business trust. This is probably one of my favorite subjects to learn about. So today I want to share with you an introduction to the unincorporated business trust. And I want to give you an idea of how deep these lessons get, and try to help give you an understanding of what to expect whenever this online the online courses become available. And another great thing, whenever this does become available, you'll also have an AI instructor available to answer any questions that you may have. And that is going to really increase how quick you learn, and just make sure that you're understanding things correctly. You can use it to make quizzes and all kinds of things. It's very, very amazing. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into this. This lesson introduces the Unincorporated Business Trust, also known as a UBT, also called a Massachusetts-type business trust, as a private common law contractual arrangement formed through a declaration of trust, and explains why it appeals to those seeking flexibility, privacy, asset protection, and freedom from certain statutory frameworks. You'll explore the trust foundational components, recitals, Article 1, General and Declaration, and Article 2, Domicile and Jurisdiction, to understand the purpose, legal creation, and independence of the trust, and how domicile, jurisdiction anchor its governance. The lesson also clarifies trustee-beneficiary distinctions, the trust irrevocability, and the use of beneficial interests, or shares, emphasizing that the UBT is not a corporation or partnership. By the end, you will see these provisions ensure a valid, recognized, and independent structure for organizing property, business activities, and investments. So this will be the introduction to the Unincorporated Business Trust. The Unincorporated Business Trust, also known as a Massachusetts-type business trust, is recognized as one of the most versatile and powerful private legal instruments for organizing property, business activities, and investments. Unlike corporations or limited liability companies, which exist only as creations of statute, the UBT is established through a declaration of trust. This makes it fundamentally a contractual arrangement under common law, giving it a distinct foundation outside the legislative frameworks that govern statutory entities. Because of this unique foundation, the UBT is especially attractive for individuals and groups who value flexibility in structuring business affairs, privacy in both ownership and management, strong asset protection features to safeguard wealth, freedom from certain statutory frameworks that automatically apply to corporations and partnerships. At its core, the strength of the trust lies in its foundational provisions, recitals explaining the purpose and intent behind the trust, general and declaration establishing the existence and authority of the trust, domicile and jurisdiction defining the legal home and governing authority over the trust. Together, these sections set out the why, how, and where of the trust creation. Without them, the trust would lack validity and legal recognition. This lesson begins by introducing these core building blocks, breaking them down step by step. By the end, you will not only understand the text of the trust, but also the reasoning behind its construction, preparing you to apply these principles in real-world scenarios. The learning objectives explain the purpose and significance of the recitals in a trust document. That's the first one. Second, understanding the meaning and function of Article 1, General and Declaration. 3. Identify how Article 2, Domicile and Jurisdiction, affects the trust's legal standing and operations. 4. Recognize how these foundational provisions establish the independence and governance of the trust. The role of the recitals. Definition of recitals. Recitals are the introductory statements found at the beginning of a trust document. They outline the purpose, intent, and background of the trust, providing a narrative that explains why the trust is being created. Written in a formal style, they typically begin with the word whereas, signaling that what follows is a declaration of intent rather than a legally binding clause. These statements create the context for the trust, making clear what the trustees and the creators envisioned at the time of formation. Although recitals do not carry the same legal weight as operative provisions, their values lie in clarifying the spirit and declaration of the trust. Much like the preamble of a constitution, recitals articulate the underlying philosophy and intent behind the legal framework. They ensure that anyone interpreting the trust understands the why behind its existence, serving as a guiding foundation for trustees, beneficiaries, and even courts in case of disputes or ambiguities. Function of recitals. Through recitals, although recitals are not legally binding like operative clauses, they perform a crucial interpretive function. When parts of the trust document appear unclear or ambiguous, courts may look back to the recitals to identify the trustee's original intentions. In this way, recitals serve as a guiding foundation, ensuring the trust operates consistently with the purpose for which it was created. In legal disputes, they act as a contextual map, helping to interpret the operative clauses within the framework of the trust declared philosophy and goals. Interpretive role. Recitals help courts and trustees interpret the operative clauses of the trust. If there is any uncertainty in the binding provisions, recitals provide a reliable point of reference to clarify what was meant at the time of the creation. For trustees, the recitals offer practical guidance when making decisions, reminding them of the trust declared objectives. For trustees, recitals offer practical guidance when making decisions, reminding them of the trust declared objectives. For courts, they serve as a supplementary aid to ensure legal rulings align with the original purpose. In cases of conflict or dispute, recitals provide the broader context for understanding the trust. They prevent isolated interpretations of clauses and keep decisions consistent with the founding philosophy. Recitals and the UBT Declaration. Within the Unincorporated Business Trust Framework, recitals carry specific declarations that shape the trust foundation. Declaration of Intent. Trustees formally state their intention to establish a Massachusetts-type business trust under common law. 2. Capital and Property Management. Trustees agree to manage the property and capital contributed to the trust, establishing fiduciary accountability. Beneficial interest. The recitals clarified that beneficial interest in the trust will be represented through transferable shares, distinguishing the trust from the corporate structures while still allowing flexible ownership. In practice, recitals often provide clarity when questions arise about what a trust is permitted to do. For instance, imagine a dispute over whether an unincorporated business trust can expand into new business activities that are not specifically listed in its operative provisions. At first glance, the absence of such authority in the binding clauses could create doubt. However, if the recitals include language expressing a broad business purpose, they may serve as a persuasive evidence of the trustee's original intent to allow diverse activities. In this way, recitals help expand the interpretive boundaries of the trust and can resolve disputes in favor of flexibility, ensuring the trust remains true to its purpose while adapting to changing circumstances. Key insight. Recitals are more than formalities. They are the philosophical foundation of the trust. They answer the why behind the trust. They provide interpretive clarity when operative clauses leave room for doubt. They safeguard the trust's original intent by serving as a reference point for courts and trustees alike. Thus, in the context of a UBT, recitals ensure that the trust remains true to its founding principles even as it evolves over time. Okay. It's getting dry on me here. Should have brought me a drink. But this is my first time, and gotta live and learn. And I don't want to do this over again. So thank you for bearing with me. Overview of Article 1, General and Declaration. Article 1 is the foundational section of the Unincorporated Business Trust. It represents the formal creation of the trust and serves as its legal birth certificate. Through this article, the creator or grantor officially brings the trust into existence, laying out its identity, nature, and independence from other organizational forms. Without Article 1, the trust would have no standing in law, as it is this declaration that provides legal recognition and legitimacy. This article also defines the core relationships and structural features of the trust. It outlines the appointment of trustees, their acceptance of fiduciary responsibility, and the irrevocable nature of the trust, which provides performance and strong asset protection. It further clarifies that the trust is not a corporation, partnership, or joint stock company, ensuring that it is created solely as a trust and cannot be reclassified under statutory frameworks. In this way, Article 1 establishes both the existence and independence of the trust while protecting it from the outside interference or misinterpretation. Formal creation, the birth of the trust. Article 1 functions as the legal birth certificate of the Unincorporated Business Trust. It is here that the creator, also called the grantor, formally declares the existence of the trust. Without this declaration, the trust would have no standing or recognition under law. This declaration serves as the foundational step that transforms an agreement of intent into a legally recognized entity. Trustees, the appointed stewards. The names of the trustees must clearly be recorded in the Declaration of Trust. To validate their appointment, trustees are required to sign written acceptances of their role. This step demonstrates consent and accountability, ensuring no one can be made a trustee without agreement. Once appointed, trustees hold all property in trust, exclusively for the benefit of the beneficiaries. They are stewards, not owners in their personal capacity, and their authority derives entirely from the trust declaration. This provision ensures that the trustees operate under a fiduciary duty, with their actions legally bound to serve the interest of the trust and its beneficiaries. Irrevocability, ensuring performance and protection. The trust is declared irrevocable, meaning the creator cannot later revoke, cancel, or amend it at will. This irrevocability provides certainty and performance in the trust operations, assuring all parties that the structure cannot be altered on a whim. From an asset protection perspective, irrevocability prevents creditors from claiming that the creator still exercises control over the trust assets. By eliminating the creator's power to alter or dismantle the trust achieves a higher degree of legal insulation. Relationship defined. Trust, not a business entity. The declaration explicitly clarifies that the trust is not a corporation, partnership, or joint stock company. Beneficiaries are explicitly recognized as not being partners. They hold no managerial authority in the trust operation. Their role is passive. They benefit from the trust but do not control it. I'm sure you've heard the term, what is it? Control everything, own nothing. This distinction is crucial as it prevents government agencies, courts, or creditors from attempting to reclassify the trust as a business entity subject to corporate or partnership laws. By making this line clear, the trust preserves its identity as a pure common law trust. And that's one of the things I appreciate about common law. It overrides statutory law. We were taught that these statutory laws apply to us, the living man, and it does not. The statutory laws apply only to the entities or the business entities. So, whenever we were born, our birth certificates were basically created a business entity in the all caps name. And throughout our lives, we have been using this birth certificate and social security number, and these corporations have been basically tricking us into being the trustees for these entities. And then whenever we get into trouble or whatever, they legally put these performance bonds on us, and that's how we get locked up. So to get away from that, we have to create our own entity and be in control of our own entity, because our birth certificate and social security card, we did not create those. We are just the beneficiary, and unfortunately, they don't want us to benefit from it. So that's why things are the way they are in this world. We'll go into the overview of trustee beneficiary distinctions. A vital feature of the unincorporated business trust is the clear separation between trustees and beneficiaries. This distinction ensures that each party has defined roles and responsibilities, preventing overlap or confusion that could weaken the trust's legal standing. Trustees hold legal authority to manage and protect the trust assets, while beneficiaries enjoy the economic benefits without exercising managerial control. This separation safeguards the trust from being treated as a partnership, or corporation, which would subject it to statutory regulations. By maintaining this division, the trust achieves two key outcomes: operational efficiency and legal protection. Trustees act as the decision makers and custodians of the trust, while the beneficiaries are shielded from liability and management burdens. This structure also enhances privacy and security, ensuring that only the trustees' actions represent the trust to the outside world. Trustees, the legal managers. Trustees are responsible for managing all property and affairs of the trust. They hold legal title to all trust assets, meaning that while they do not own the property personally, they are recognized in law as its managers and custodians. Trustees must be collectively, and in most cases, decisions require unanimous consent, ensuring that no single trustee can dominate the trust operations. Practical note: a beneficiary can enjoy the economic benefits of the trust, such as income, profit distributions, or other gains, without carrying the burden of managing its affairs or being exposed to liability. Since trustees hold legal title and assume responsibility for operations, beneficiaries remain passive participants, insulated from risk while still receiving financial advantages. This arrangement makes the trust both efficient and protective, serving its purpose as a secure and private legal structure. Key advantages for beneficiaries: receive profits, income, or other distributions generated by the trust. Remain free from management responsibilities and decision-making burdens. Enjoy legal protections, as creditors cannot seize trust assets for personal debts. Maintain privacy, since trustees act on behalf of the trust in all external dealings. All right. Framework of Article 2, Domicile and Jurisdiction. Article 2 defines both the geographical anchoring and the legal environment of the unincorporated business trust. By establishing domicile and jurisdiction, the trust secures a recognized legal home, while ensuring that the operations remain rooted in contract law rather than being drawn into corporate or statutory systems. This gives the trust a firm identity that courts and third parties can recognize while still preserving its independence from external control. Domicile connects to the trust to a specific state, often determined by either the declaration itself or by the residence of its trustees. This connection is not merely procedural. It determines which courts have authority over the trust and which state laws may apply in case of disputes. At the same time, jurisdiction clarifies that the trust declaration itself is the primary authority, ensuring that the trust is guided first and foremost by the private contract established under common law. By referencing Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution, which prohibits states from impairing obligations of contracts, Article 2 grounds the trust in constitutional protections. This means the trust is not just an internal arrangement, but one safeguarded by a higher legal standard, giving it resilience against statutory intrusion. In essence, Article 2 ensures that the trust has both a recognized legal identity and a protective framework that secures its independence and legitimacy. So, domicile. The trust is declared as created in the state of Washington, giving it a formal point of legal origin. That's just the state of Washington. It could be Texas. It could be South Dakota, North Dakota. There's Alaska, Massachusetts. These are states that do not have state income tax. In practice, the trustee's domicile often functions as the trust legal residence, since trustees represent the trust in law. Jurisdiction. The trust operates primarily according to its own declaration, which serves as the governing instrument. If the declaration is silent on an issue, courts may apply the law of the state where the trust is domiciled. That's another important reason to have it domiciled in a state that has no state income tax. The Declaration explicitly references Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, which prohibits states from impairing the obligations of contracts. This ties the trust directly to common law contract rights, reinforcing its private contractual nature. Addresses. Both mailing and principal addresses of the trust are recorded for official correspondence and recognition. Practical importance. Determines where the trust may be sued or where it can enforce its rights. Influences which state's law will govern disputes and interpretations. Reinforces the trust's independence, grounding it in contract law rather than subjecting it to corporate law or statutory reclassification. A key insight. Article 2 anchors the trust both geographically and legally, providing it with a recognized jurisdiction while safeguarding its contractual foundation. By tying the trust to common law rights under the U.S. Constitution, it secures both legitimacy and protection from unwanted statutory interference. Practical implications. Understanding the real-world impact. The provisions of domicile, jurisdiction, and trustee beneficiary distinctions are not merely legal formalities. They have direct consequences in daily operations and legal recognition of the trust. Trustees must carry out their duties with precision, as their power and authority comes solely from the declaration of trust, not from state-granted corporate powers. Beneficiaries, in turn, should clearly understand their position as recipients of economic benefits, but not managers of the trust. This separation is what safeguards them from liabilities and ensures the trust retains its independent, contract-based nature. For the trust as a whole, proper execution of these roles and responsibilities is what determines whether it will be recognized and respected in court. Errors in documentation, unclear trustee authority, or mismanagement can undermine its protections. Conversely, when trustees act faithfully, beneficiaries understand their rights and records are properly maintained. The trust demonstrates itself as a legitimate, independent entity under law. Trustees must recognize that their authority flows directly from the trust declaration, not from the state statutes or business law. The declaration is their legal foundation. The domicile of the trustees plays a critical role since it often determines where lawsuits may be filed or defended, giving courts a clear jurisdictional anchor. Accurate and consistent record keeping of addresses, appointments, and written acceptances is essential to preserve legitimacy and preserve challenges to their authority. Beneficiaries should understand that their role is limited to holding a beneficial interest, not a managerial position within the trust. Must rely on trustees to uphold fiduciary duties and to act in their best interest, since trustees are the ones empowered to manage trust affairs. Their rights are doubly protected. First by trust law, and second by common law contract principles, reinforcing both privacy and security. All right. Key insights. The first would be the strength of the trust depends on execution and faithful adherence to its declaration. 2. Trustees must always act within their granted authority as outlined in the declaration. 3. Beneficiaries must respect their non-managerial role and avoid interfering in trust operations. 4. All records, addresses, and appointments must be carefully preserved to maintain legitimacy. 5. When these practices are followed, the trust functions as a legally independent, contractually protected entity. 6. Such a structure is fully capable of safeguarding assets, serving beneficiaries, and withstanding legal scrutiny. Why these article matters. Significance of the foundational provisions. The opening provisions of the Unincorporated Business Trust, the recitals, Article 1 and Article 2, serve as the foundation upon which the entire trust structure rests. These sections work together to provide clarity, legitimacy, and enforceability. Without them, the trust would lack the formal recognition and independence necessary to function as a secure legal entity. They ensure that the trust is not only properly created but also positioned to operate under the protections of contract law rather than being subject to statutory frameworks. Core functions of each provision. The recitals, Article 1 and Article 2 together create the foundation of the trust by defining its purpose, legal existence, and jurisdictional grounding. To understand their role fully, let's go through each timeline in detail. Recitals clearly express the intent and purpose of the trust. They provide the guiding vision, outlining why the trust has been created and what it is meant to achieve. Recitals serve as the foundation of understanding, giving context to the articles that follow, and helping courts or third parties interpret the trust in line with its original intent. Article 1 provides the formal legal establishment of the trust. It acts as the trust birth certificate, declaring its independent existence, setting out the appointment of the trustees, and ensuring the trust's irrevocable nature. This article guarantees that the trust stands apart from corporations, partnerships, or statutory entities, giving it performance and strong legal recognition. Article 2 defines the trust, domicile, and jurisdiction, giving it both a geographical and legal anchor. By rooting the trust in common law contract rights and referencing constitutional protections, it ensures that the trust operates under the authority of its declaration rather than being drawn into corporate or statutory control. This article secures the trust independence while providing a clear legal framework for enforcement and dispute resolution. Why they matter? 1. Without these provisions, the trust would lack clarity, leaving its purpose and structure open to dispute. 2. The trust would also lack authority as its formal creation and recognition depend on Article 1. 3. Enforceability would be compromised without the clear jurisdictional grounding and contract law protections provided by Article 2. 4. Together, they ensure the trust is valid, respected, and independent in both legal and practical terms. Summary. Introduction to the Unincorporated Business Trust. 1. The recitals declare the purpose and intent of the trust. 2. Article 1 formally creates the trust, appoints trustees, and establishes irrevocability. 3. Article 2 defines domicile, jurisdiction, and ties the trust to constitutional contract rights. Together, these sections ensure that the trust is properly created, legally recognized, and securely anchored as an independent contractual entity. They establish its purpose, legal foundation, and jurisdiction, making it distinct from the corporations or partnerships, while preserving its autonomy under common law protections. Coming up next, in the next lesson, I'll be doing trustees and governance. You'll learn how trustees are appointed, how they exercise their authority, and the governance principles that guide the trust operations, ensuring both accountability and protection for the beneficiaries. So that concludes today's first lesson, a brief introduction to the Unincorporated Business Trust. Again, my name is Caleb Mills, and this is Trusted Academy. And thank you for your time and attention, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.